There's a woman who remembers every single day of her life, every breakfast, every conversation, every moment. Scientists call it hyperthymesia. She can't forget anything. You'd think this is a superpower, but here's what they don't tell you. She describes it as a prison. Her past is so vivid, so overwhelming, that she struggles to live in the present. What if the memories you're desperately holding on to are the very things preventing you from growing? Think about the stories you tell. About yourself. I'm the person who I've always been. That time when You wear these memories like identity badges, proof of who you are. But here's the thing. Every time you repeat that story, you're reinforcing a version of yourself that might not exist anymore. You're not documenting your past. You're recreating it. The breakup from 5 years ago. The failure that taught you everything. The childhood wound you've spent 2 decades analyzing. These aren't just memories. They're the architecture of your limitations. Because you can't become someone new while carrying every version of who you were. Your brain isn't designed to remember everything. It's designed to forget. Neuroscientists call this synaptic pruning. Your brain actively deletes neural connections that aren't being used. It's not a bug. It's a feature. Every night while you sleep, your brain decides what stays and what goes. Weak connections fade. Strong ones strengthen. The memories you think define you, they're literally being rewritten every time you recall them. Memory isn't storage, it's reconstruction. And here's what's fascinating. People with exceptional memory often struggle with decision-making. Too much past, not enough present. Your brain knows something you don't want to accept. Forgetting is how you evolve. So let me ask you something. What if you're not who you think you are? What if the you you're protecting is just a collection of stories your brain decided to keep? And what if those stories are preventing you from becoming something better? If you've ever felt stuck in a pattern you can't break, leave A in the comments. Because here's what nobody tells you. That pattern isn't your personality. It's just a memory your brain keeps choosing. And the moment you realize that, everything changes. The question isn't whether you should forget. The question is, what are you refusing to let go of, and why? Here's what happens. When you sleep, your brain floods with cerebrospinal fluid, a literal wave washing through your neural pathways. It clears metabolic waste, but it also weakens memories that aren't important. Your brain is asking, do we still need this? The embarrassing moment from 10 years ago? The argument you keep replaying? The version of yourself that no longer serves you? Your biology is trying to let it go, but you keep dragging it back. Every time you ruminate, you're strengthening neural pathways. That should be fading. You're manually overriding your brain's attempt to set you free. This isn't about denial or toxic positivity. This is about recognizing that your own mind knows what you need to release. Your brain has about 86 billion neurons. Each neuron can form thousands of connections, trillions of possible pathways. But here's the constraint. Your brain uses 20% of your body's energy. It can't afford to maintain every connection. It has to choose. Studies show that 60% of memories formed today will be significantly altered or forgotten within 48 hours, not because your brain is broken, because it's efficient. The memories that survive, they're the ones you actively reinforce, which means you're curating your own prison. Every time you relive that trauma, that failure, that version of yourself you hate, you're voting for it to stay. Your repeated thoughts are building the cage you're trying to escape. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. What if you don't want to grow? What if holding on to those memories, those stories, that identity, what if that's your way of staying safe? Because growth requires you to become someone you don't recognize yet. And that's terrifying. It's easier to say this is who I am than to admit I don't know who I'm becoming. Your memories aren't the problem. Your fear of losing them is. Because deep down you believe that without your past, you'll have nothing. No story, no identity, no excuse, just you, right now, with nothing to hide behind, and maybe that's what you're really afraid of. If this is making you uncomfortable, you're exactly where you need to be, because comfort is the enemy of transformation. You want to grow? You have to grieve, not just the bad memories, all of them. The person you were at 15, at 25, last year, last month. Every version of yourself that got you here needs to die for the next one to emerge. And nobody tells you that growth feels like loss, that becoming Better means mourning who you were. You're not losing yourself. You're letting go of the story you thought you were. And that's not sad. That's evolution. You learned to hold on early. Maybe someone left. Maybe something was taken. Maybe you learned that love is scarce and must be hoarded. So you started collecting moments, collecting proof, collecting versions of yourself in case you needed them again. Your memory became your security, and it made sense. It kept you safe, when safety was hard to find. But what protected you then is suffocating you now. That child who learned to hold tight, they did what they had to do. But you're not that child anymore. The danger has passed. The scarcity was real then, but it's not real now. You're holding on to a survival strategy that's no longer serving you. Here's the cruel irony. The thing that saved you became the thing that trapped you. You built walls to keep pain out. Now those walls are keeping growth out. You held onto memories to prove you survived. Now they're proof you can't move forward. You created an identity to feel solid and real. Now that identity is rigid and false. Every defense mechanism has an expiration date, but you keep renewing it, year after year, decade after decade. The fortress you built at 15 is still standing at 35, and you're inside, convinced you're protecting yourself, while the real you is suffocating. What if the danger isn't out there anymore? What if the danger is staying inside? Think about how exhausting it is, carrying every version of yourself, every mistake, every triumph, every moment. Your body knows. Your mind knows. That's why you're so tired, not from working too hard, from remembering too much, from being the curator of your own museum while trying to live a life worth curating. You can't be present when you're constantly referencing the past. You can't love fully when you're comparing it to old love. You can't try new things when you're terrified of collecting new failures. Every memory you refuse to release is a weight you carry into every new moment. And eventually, you'll be so heavy you can't move at all. Is that who you want to be? The person who stopped growing because they couldn't stop remembering? Nobody talks about the grief of growth. The version of you that protected you at 20? She has to die. The version that survived by staying small? He has to go. And it's okay to mourn them. It's okay to feel sad about who you're no longer going to be. But here's the thing. If you're still watching this, part of you has already chosen. Part of you knows that staying the same would be worse than the grief of changing. You wouldn't be here if some part of you wasn't ready to let go. The old you is already fading. You can feel it. The question is whether you'll resist it or release it with gratitude. Because those old versions, they did their job. They got you here. They deserve to rest. And then there's this moment, this uncomfortable, empty moment, where you're no longer who you were, but you don't know who you're becoming. You've let go, but nothing has appeared to replace it yet. This is the void, the space between identities. And it's terrifying because humans hate uncertainty more than they hate pain. You want the answer now. You want to know what's next, but growth doesn't work that way. There's always a gap, always a not knowing, always a becoming without being. This is where most people panic and grab back onto their old identity, because nothing feels better than something, even if that something was suffocating you. But if you can sit here, in the void, in the not knowing, everything changes. And then, slowly, something happens. Not dramatic, not sudden, just a recognition. You realize you're still here. Without the stories, without the armor, without the old identity. You're still breathing, still feeling, still aware. Maybe you're more here than you've ever been. Because for the first time, you're not performing a version of yourself. You're not trying to prove anything. You're just present. And in that presence, something new begins to form. Not from effort, not from planning, from spaciousness, from the room you made by letting go. This is where growth actually happens. In the empty space you were afraid of. You know what you discover? The you that remains after you've released everything is enough, more than enough, because it's real. It's not curated, not performed, not protected. It's just you, without the weight, without the armor, without the endless evidence. And maybe that's what you've been searching for all along. Not a better past, not a perfect story, just the freedom to exist without justification. This is the growth nobody tells you about. Not becoming more, becoming less, and discovering that less is everything. If this shifted something in you, even if it's small, even if you can't name it, that's enough. You're enough. Here's what nobody tells you about growth through forgetting. You don't erase the past. You stop letting it define the present. The memories can still exist. You just stop living in them. You can honor what was without being imprisoned by it. You can remember without ruminating, acknowledge without identifying. Both things are true. Your past shaped you, and it doesn't have to control you. You were that person, and you're not anymore. It hurt, and it made you stronger. You needed those defenses, and now you need to release them. This is integration, not denial, not erasure, integration. Holding the complexity, living in the paradox, remembering with wisdom instead of pain. This is what it means to actually grow up. So you return to the same world, the same relationships, the same routines, but you're different. You're not cured. You're not fixed. You're not healed. You're just awake. And being awake changes everything while changing nothing. The pain might still be there. The scars remain. The patterns try to reassert themselves, but now you see them. And seeing them means you have a choice. You can't go back to unconscious living. Not really. Once you know the memories are just stories, you can't unknow it. Once you feel the lightness of letting go, you can't unfeel it. This is the return, not to innocence, to consciousness. And consciousness is both the burden and the freedom. So here's what I want to know. What's the one memory you're still holding on to that you know you need to release? Not the traumatic ones, not the big dramatic ones, the small one, the quiet one, the one that keeps you playing small. The story you keep telling about yourself that isn't true anymore. You know which one I'm talking about. Tell me in the comments. I'm going to read and respond to the first 100. Because growth doesn't happen alone. It happens when we witness each, others becoming. What if forgetting isn't loss? What if it's the only way forward?